If you've seen my videos before, it should be no secret that I am a huge fan of romance anime. From Your Lie in April to My Mental Choices Are Completely Ruining My High School Romantic Comedy, I have seen a ton of different shows of varying quality. But there was one show that eluded me for the longest time. One that I would argue is the most famous romance anime ever. And that show was Toradora. Now, the eagle eyed viewers out there might have noticed that behind me, obscured by the figures, I have several volumes of the light novels and manga. I thought that by reading the manga, that would convince me to watch the series, but all it did was make me read it at a snail's pace. So, for a long time, I only had a taste of the series. But that taste was enough to make me want to make a video as soon as possible. So, late last year, I finally watched the anime, and it was amazing. The series has some iconic characters, great emotional moments, and an explosive ending that sets it apart from a lot of other romances out there. So, let's explore Toradora. Before we do, though, I just want to say that Toradora is an amazing anime. And if you're watching this video and you haven't watched it, I urge you to do so before watching this video. I will be spoiling a ton and going into a lot of detail about things, so you have been warned. Toradora started as a light novel, published from 2006 to 2009. It was written by Yuyuko Takamiya and illustrated by Yasu. The manga adaptation drawn by Zekio started in 2007 and is still running to this day. The anime came out from 2008 to 2009 and was one season of 25 episodes.
Takasu Ryuji is a second year in high school who has the reputation of being a delinquent, despite being a quiet guy who keeps to himself and likes to clean. He has this reputation because of his eyes. He always seems to have a nasty look, but that's just what his face looks like. Because of this, life is very tough for Ryuji. He only has one friend named Kitamura, and to add to his troubles, he is crushing on someone way out of his league, Kushieda Minori. Ryuji is in the same class with both of them at the start of the new school year, and he is determined to change his image around, and hopefully get Minori to notice him. But then Ryuji literally runs into trouble in the form of Aisaka Taiga, who is known as the Palm Top Tiger. Taiga gets this name because of her short stature and her ferocious attitude. She is also in the same class as Ryuji and is Minori's best friend.
You have heard of Taiga before, and if you haven't, welcome to anime. Taiga is a lot of people's first waifu, and even though I'm new to the series, I can understand why. Taiga is a classic example of a tsundere, a character who starts off very harsh, but they only act this way because they don't understand how to express feelings of love. Toradora explores this in a very beautiful way, so Taiga comes off as a well-written character. I can see why people still talk about Taiga to this day. She is an evergreen waifu.
After school, Ryuji returns to the classroom to retrieve his bag and runs into Taiga, who trips over herself. Ryuji tries to escape with his bag and his life, but Taiga struggles to take the bag from him. Taiga sneezes, which allows Ryuji to escape home and hopefully put this situation behind him. However, in the middle of the night, Ryuji hears a commotion in his room and is attacked by an assailant with a wooden sword. It is Taiga, and she is here to retrieve the love letter meant for Kitamura that she left in Ryuji's bag. Or at least the envelope of one, because there was nothing in said envelope. Ryuji and Taiga come to the realization that they have a crush on the other's best friend, so they agree to help each other out.
The relationship between Taiga and Ryuji is at the core of the series. They start off bickering every 2 seconds at the beginning, but we actually see that they benefit from having the other around. Taiga lives alone and isn't that great at taking care of herself. She was sick at the beginning of the series because of the dust, and the moldy dishes in her apartment weren't helping at all either. Plus, she only eats food from convenience stores, so she isn't very well fed. And on the other hand, Ryuji is a great housekeeper. Since his mom is the sole breadwinner and keeps odd hours because of her job, Ryuji is the one that does all the cooking and cleaning. So, when he goes over to Taiga's apartment for the first time, he takes it upon himself to clean it up. So now Taiga has someone to take care of her, and Ryuji gets to clean all the time, which he weirdly gets off on.
Because Taiga relies on Ryuji so much, the two of them are together constantly, and this does not go unnoticed by the class. Rumors constantly spread that the two are dating, which gets to Kitamura and Minori, who congratulate the two.
A lot of romance anime start with the main characters just being friends, but one will very obviously have a crush on the other. However, Toradora is unique where our two leads are just platonic friends and they seem very content with keeping it that way.
Taiga gets frustrated at the rumors surrounding her and Ryuji, and on the way home from a family restaurant, Taiga makes a very heartfelt speech about no one understanding her and Ryuji. Everyone else only sees what is on the outside, but they know the truth. The two of them know the other as much as they know themselves. And in an act of rebellion against the cruel world that judges them, Taiga kicks a telephone pole so much it starts to lean.
This telephone pole scene is iconic, and it helps us understand our theme of appearances. But it also helps show us the similarities between Taiga and Ryuji. Sure, it was circumstances that brought these two together, but they are a good match for each other.
The next day at school, Taiga yells at everyone, setting the record straight that her and Ryuji are not dating and never will. She then confesses to Kitamura, who says that he is confused that she is asking him out when she rejected him when he asked her out the year prior.
I'm going to gloss over this. I know it seems important. It's not. It just doesn't get brought up that much.
Anyway, after Taiga's rejection, Ryuji rushes to Taiga's side and declares that he is the one worthy enough to be next to her because a dragon is the only thing strong enough to handle a tiger.
Let's talk about the title of the series, because what does Toradora even mean? Well, Taiga's name is a katakanization of the English word for tiger, and the Japanese word for tiger is Tora, and Ryu is the Japanese word for dragon. But if you put dragon into katakana, it becomes Doragon. Tora, Dora, tiger, dragon, Taiga, and Ryuji. Ryuji is saying that the two of them are meant for each other, not in a romantic way, but in a platonic way. The best part about this series is the relationship between Taiga and Ryuji. So let's compare and contrast these two so we can better understand them and their relationship.
Ryuji, like I said earlier, has a very menacing look, which he gets from his father. Ryuji's father is absent and is presumed dead at the start of the series, but we later find out that he just left Ryuji's mom to raise their child on her own. Yasuko, Ryuji's mother, is doing her best to provide for her and her son, but she isn't able to provide much. The place they live in is small, and it doesn't get any natural light because of the high-rise apartments that were built right next to the one window. Ryuji despises his father and hates being compared to him, but we know that even though Ryuji looks like his father, he doesn't act like him at all. Ryuji's dad was a thug, but Ryuji likes to clean and takes care of his mother. We can tell that the two have a very close family bond. Now, let's compare that to Taiga. Remember those high-rise apartments I mentioned earlier that are right outside the Takasu residence? Well, Taiga lives in one of those apartments by herself. And it is a really nice apartment, but how can Taiga afford to live there and why is she by herself? Well, Taiga's parents are divorced and she got into an argument with her mother over something and her mother sent her away to this apartment so that she didn't have to deal with her. But Taiga gets an allowance from her father, so she is able to live comfortably. She doesn't have to pay rent and she can get whatever clothes she wants, and she does. But even though she has wealth, she is alone, which is the exact opposite of Ryuji, who lives in a lower income house but has family. It's just his mother and the bird Inko-chan, but it's still family. Taiga is allowed over at Ryuji's all the time and is able to eat dinner there, so she slowly becomes part of the family so that she isn't alone anymore.
Taiga and Ryuji may be opposites, but they still share a fair amount of similarities. Both only have one close friend, and they are both misjudged by their peers. The core theme of Toradora is what's on the inside versus what's on the outside. Ryuji's classmates all think he's a delinquent, despite him actually liking to clean and being a nice and quiet guy. And Taiga looks really small and cute because she is 4'8.5". I stand by our short queen. But despite her size, she is super ferocious and throws things a lot. So her classmates are really scared of her. But once you get to know her, she's actually a really caring and sweet person, as we see as the series continues. This theme of inner versus outer appearances is consistent through all of the characters, but it is especially prevalent in the character of Ami.
Ami is introduced as Kitamura's childhood best friend. She is a model and comes off as a little ditzy. However, Ami is extremely two-faced. She sees herself as superior to everyone else and is very harsh and rude towards other people. Her outer appearance is an act to make people like her more. Kitamura introduces Ami to Taiga and Ryuji, and Ami immediately starts bullying Taiga once she thinks that the two boys are gone. Taiga and Ami are at odds the entire series. So, Ami and Taiga don't get along, but what about Ami and Ryuji? Well, during Community Cleanup Day, there is a massive rainstorm which causes Ami to drop her facade and scream at a frog. She tries to play it off, but Ryuji already knows who Ami really is, so he tells her not to bother and that maybe she should just be herself.
See, Kitamura knew the true Ami, and he introduced her to Taiga and Ryuji because they are honest with themselves. See, Taiga doesn't put up a facade. She isn't being mean to push people away, she just gets frustrated. And that's what Kitamura respects about her. That's why he asked her out. Okay, I guess I did bring it up again. And when it comes to Ryuji, he's the same way. Sure, at the beginning of the series, he was messing with his bangs, trying to make himself look softer and less mean, but he forgoes this and goes to school looking like his normal self. Taiga and Ryuji don't hide anything about themselves, and even though they don't have that many friends, this doesn't affect them at all. So Kitamura hopes that by introducing Ami to these two, she can learn to be more genuine and be herself. Ami comes off as a very unsavory character because of her two-faced nature and the fact that she's always fighting with Taiga. But she is actually very important to the story. Ami's ability to hide her true self makes her great at picking up on social cues. This is important because she is an outsider to the relationship between Taiga, Ryuji, Kushieda, and Kitamura. She is able to pick it apart and see it for what it really is. And this is what makes the second half of Toradora so good. Once the relationship starts to break down and conflict emerges, it becomes really compelling. So, let's take a look at the relationship between these four and see how things can fall apart.
Ryuji is hopeless when it comes to his crush on Minori. He doesn't really interact with her all that much. Sure, he is around her a lot, and he visits her at her work all the time with Taiga, but he doesn't speak to her at all. And any interaction they do have together is pretty strange, like when Minori told him about the literal bucket of pudding she made. But the bargain that Taiga and Ryuji made together is that Ryuji would help Taiga with her crush, and Taiga would help Ryuji with his. So, during a trip to Ami's villa that Taiga forced herself to be a part of, she decides to focus on helping Ryuji get with Minori. Their plan is to scare her into Ryuji's arms because Minori is notoriously bad with scary things, according to Taiga. The plan is not effective at all. In fact, it actively keeps Minori away at one point because Ryuji and Taiga want her gone so that they can set up a lame jump scare. But there are a handful of times where Ryuji and Minori are able to have some alone time, like when they did the dishes together, and a scene that is actually one of my favorites in the whole series. Ryuji and Minori are sitting on the back porch eating ice cream together, and our boy Ryuji gets a little bold and asks Minori if she has a boyfriend. And then Minori asks him if he has ever seen a ghost before.
Minori is a strange character in this series. She's super bubbly and borderline comic relief. But this scene shows us that her strange exterior might be a way to cover up the pain that she is feeling on the inside. I refer to this scene as the ghost analogy, and it is Minori using the example of ghosts to describe her feelings on love. She says that
Even though she's never seen a ghost, she believes they exist, and she believes other people when they say that they've seen a ghost, which is exactly how she feels about love. Even though she's never felt love, she believes that it exists. And her desire to want to see a ghost is her desire to find someone special to her. I love this scene, and it actually represents a shift for the entire series. Toradora starts off similar to a slice of life, with a lot of comedic moments and funny interactions between characters. But starting from right now, the series will focus way heavier on individual characters and dissecting the relationships between them on the same level as something like Origairu. Later, it is revealed that Minori actually really loves scary things, and she was just lying to Taiga. I wonder if establishing that Minori is willing to lie to her best friend in order to cover up her real feelings will be significant at all in the future. At the end of the trip, the gang sets off fireworks, and during the fireworks, Ryuji tells Minori that he hopes she sees a ghost one day, which is the first sign that there might be a spark between the two. The next big moment that Ryuji and Minori share is the cultural festival, where the two have a massive fight over Taiga's shitty father. Taiga's dad has slithered his way back into her life, and Taiga refuses to give him the time of day, because she knows this is bad news. But Ryuji, forcing his own unresolved daddy issues on Taiga, pushes her to spend more time with him. Ryuji may resent his dad, but we can tell that he wishes he had a relationship with him, and he envies this chance that Taiga is being given. Against her better judgment, Taiga agrees and starts hanging out with her dad more, which causes her to be spending less time with Ryuji. Minori is furious about this. She immediately tries to talk some sense into Taiga, but Ryuji stops her, saying that this is a good thing. Minori gets upset that Ryuji would even consider saying that, and a massive rift is put between the two.
The reason as to why Minori is so against Taiga letting her father back in is because it happened once before with Minori. Before Ryuji was the one to take care of Taiga by cleaning for her and cooking for her, Minori was the one to do all that. But she stopped because of Taiga and her father getting closer. But of course, her father flaked on her, leaving Taiga all alone in the aftermath, which made room for Ryuji to take Minori's place. Minori is worried that this will happen again, where Taiga will open herself up to her father and then be left alone and disappointed. And Minori is partially right.
On the day of the cultural festival, Taiga is in the beauty pageant, and during the pageant, she asks Ami, who is hosting, to do a special announcement that Taiga's father is in the audience, and for him to stand up and make himself known. But Taiga's father isn't there, and Taiga, in an act of rage, rips the bottom of her dress and declares that she doesn't need anybody. It appears as though things are going to repeat, and Taiga will be all alone again. Or so it appears, because after winning the beauty contest, the Student Council President, makes an announcement that they will be holding the Mr. Lucky Man competition, where the winner will receive her test answers from the past year and the chance to ask Taiga to a dance. All you have to do is run one lap around the school. Ryuji races furiously against every other guy, desperately trying to win for Taiga. He said he was the one worthy of standing beside her, so he has to win. But the odds are stacked against him. Members of sports clubs are far ahead, and Ryuji isn't very athletic. If only he knew someone who was. Minori rushes to Taksu's aid and allows him to take the lead. But before crossing the finish line, he runs back and grabs Minori's hand, and the two cross the finish line together, because they are both going to be there for Taiga. Always.
Ryuji and Minori get very close in volumes 4 and 5, and at the end of volume 5, they join forces out of their love for Taiga. Minori is Taiga's closest friend. They always walked to school together before Ryuji came along, and they still always eat lunch together. But Ryuji and Taiga are also very close. Those lunches are made by Ryuji, and backtracking to the villa a little bit, during one of the nights Ryuji and Taiga stay up late, and Ryuji remarks that even though they're in a big spacious room, they're still sitting right next to each other. So we're left to wonder what the dynamic would be like if Ryuji and Minori got together. But Taiga does have a crush on Kitamura, so she can always get with him.
Taiga is a very shy and klutzy person, especially around Kitamura. She always stumbles over her words and even completely freezes up whenever he is around. So, we know her feelings, but what about Kitamura's? Well, he asked her out the year before, but he turned her down when she asked him out, so looks like he moved on. And we get full confirmation that this is the case when we get to the student council elections. With the elections looming, everyone assumes that Kitamura, the current vice president, is going to run, but when asked, Kitamura seems very much against the idea. Then, the next day, the unthinkable happens. Kitamura shows up to school with his hair dyed blonde. Dun dun dun!
Kitamura is very similar to Minori. Kitamura is also a very funny and borderline comic relief character. But once we get to the student council elections, tragedy strikes. Kitamura has a crush on the student council president, and his plan was to ask her out after the student council elections. But then he discovers that she is moving away to America, which leaves him heartbroken and is why he is acting out in this way.
Eventually, Ryuji is able to convince Kitamura to run in the election, and while giving his campaign speech, he confesses to the president, but she brushes him off and doesn't offer a clear response, which is a very cowardly form of rejection. Ryuji is pissed, but before he can do anything, Taiga stops him and tells him to go look after Kitamura, who is crying. But Taiga's real goal was to get Ryuji out of the way, so that she can deal with the president herself.
The two have a whole sword fight, which is broken up by Ryuji, and the fight is super cool to watch animated. But the actual fight isn't the important part of the scene. It is actually the words exchanged between Taiga and Sumire. Taiga is verbally berating Sumire about running away, calling her a coward and a weakling. But Sumire calls Taiga an idiot, because while yes, not giving a straightforward answer is the cowardly thing to do, Sumire thought that it was the right thing to do. If she told Kitamura that she was going to study abroad, he would probably try to make the decision to go with her. And that is not the right decision for him to make, so she didn't give him the chance to make it by not telling him. It isn't clear, but Sumire might have a thing for Kitamura. But what we do know is that she values going to study abroad more. So, since she's making the logical decision, she forces Kitamura to make the logical decision too. She throws away any potential feelings she might have in order to have Kitamura make the right decision and stay in Japan. This part is meant to get the audience thinking about the negatives of romantic feelings. These feelings can be hurtful, and sometimes you have to give them up for one reason or another.
This is important for later because during the brawl, Taiga loses her student ID, and it is picked up by a classmate. And while looking inside, they discover a picture of Kitamura. Makes sense, she does have a crush on him, and she literally just had a whole sword fight in his name. But there is another picture behind that one, which we and the classmates don't get to see, because Ami takes it before they can look. Afterwards, we move into Christmas, where Taiga makes it her goal to get Minori and Ryuji together. But it appears as though that Minori is ignoring Ryuji. But Taiga is hell-bent on making this happen, because Taiga loves Christmas, so she is going to be nice and to set them up. The perfect opportunity for Ryuji to get with Minori is for him to ask her to the school's Christmas party. Everyone is excited for the party, and everyone is pitching in to help set up. Ami brings in a massive tree to put in the gym, and Taiga brings in a crystal star to put on top. But just as the star is placed on the top of the tree, a ball comes crashing through the window, and it takes it down.
The ball was hit by Minori, and it symbolizes Minori getting in the way of Ryuji and Taiga's relationship. Minori knows that Ryuji likes her, but she doesn't want to take Ryuji away from Taiga because the last time she was left alone, she wasn't able to take care of herself. The star shattering is representative of Taiga's feelings, and Minori says that she wants to fix it all on her own. And when Ryuji tries to help, she tries to tell him no, but he forces his way in anyway. Ryuji is trying to make a world where he and Minori can be together and Taiga won't be hurt. But as we see from the star as it is being put back together, there are still some cracks that are visible.
This is why Minori is avoiding Ryuji. She doesn't want him to get any closer to her. But Ryuji is persistent and still asks Minori to the party and even gets her a hair clip as a present. Minori never shows up, but Taiga leaves early to try and drag her there for Ryuji's sake. Ryuji realizes that Taiga is sacrificing her own happiness for him, so he goes to her apartment dressed in a Santa Bear suit to cheer her up. Taiga is furious, yelling at him to leave, but after he leaves, Taiga says to herself that she isn't the one meant for Ryuji, and she hates it. Then she runs out of her apartment, crying, while calling his name.
Christmas is the most heartbreaking part of Toradora. It is where we see what is truly going on. But there was someone who had this figured out for a while. Ami. Ami throughout the whole story has been trying to get Ryuji to pick between Minori or Taiga. Sure, Ryuji may act like he has a crush on Minori, but he's always spending his time with Taiga. Even during the Christmas party, he went to go comfort Taiga instead of going to fetch Minori. This is frustrating to Ami. We first see this during the villa trip, where Ami flat out asks Ryuji if he has a crush on Minori, and Ryuji's hesitation means that he might not be so sure. If Ryuji doesn't pick, this could be devastating to the friendship between Minori and Taiga. They're just gonna keep shoving Ryuji at each other forever. And things get worse when Ami discovers what is behind the picture of Kitamura in Taiga's student ID. It is a picture of Ryuji. So now we have a full-blown love polygon that Ami wants to see broken. And she urges Ryuji to quit playing daddy, which is basically him not refusing to pick favorites and trying to get along with both of them. Ryuji is refusing to stop this, and so Ami does the next best thing and confronts Minori, and she does so during the class ski trip. We see this confrontation in a very straightforward scene. The ending of Toradora is very direct, which I respect. The thing that makes this scene straightforward is that all of our characters are present, even if Minori and Ami don't know that Taiga and Ryuji are present. And this scene isn't shrouded in subtext at all. You know very clearly what these two are talking about.
The two side girls, who I won't even bother naming, are talking about how Ryuji and Taiga should get together, and Minori doesn't say anything, so Ami chastises Minori for playing dumb, while Minori argues that Ami doesn't understand anything. Things don't escalate too much in this scene, but the next day, the two have a full-blown fist fight, showing just how explosive the end of this series is going to be.
I know I haven't spent a ton of time on Ami, but she is a well-written character and is very pivotal near the end. She plays a similar role to Haruno from Origairu, where she is trying to break the loop of indecisiveness and self-sacrifice that is plaguing the main characters in the series. When Ami got introduced, I didn't really like her all that much. But at the end, I appreciated her devilishness and her ability to cut other people down with her words, even if sometimes she goes too far.
During the fistfight, Minori loses the hair clip that Takasu was going to give to her. It was instead given to her by Taiga under the pretense that it was solely from her, and Taiga told her not to lose it, but it got knocked off during her altercation with Ami. So Taiga goes out into the snow to get it herself, but due to her clumsiness, she trips and loses consciousness. Ryuji, Kitamura, and Minori go out to look for her, and Ryuji is the one who finds her and take her back, but as Ryuji carries her up the mountain, Taiga calls him Kitamura and says that she is glad that it isn't Ryuji who is saving her, because he always saves her, and that makes it hard for her to stop loving him.
This scene is heartbreaking, and it confirms what was always there in the background: Taiga's feelings for Ryuji. There were a ton of hints throughout the series, but I'm going to highlight some of my favorite examples now.
First, the swimming battle between Taiga and Ami that I skipped. I see you typing away that I forgot about it. I didn't. I just thought it would make more sense to talk about it here. This battle comes right off the heels of Taiga walking in on Ami on top of Ryuji, and Taiga is very angry with him for days after this moment, and we are led to believe that it is because she is jealous. And Ami seems to think so too, because the swimming battle is over whether Ryuji gets to go to Ami's villa with her. Before the battle can properly begin, though, Taiga needs a new swimsuit because hers got moldy. And in some narration exclusive to the light novel, we get an idea of what Ryuji thinks of Taiga wearing it. Her expression was sullen, but her beautiful face looked like it had been carved from delicate glass. In that swimsuit, she was so beautifully molded that she could have been turned into a figure and put on display.
You mean like this? My spending habits aside, this isn't exactly the thoughts that someone would have towards just a friend.
And the actual swimming battle features another telling moment where Ryuji is knocked unconscious into the pool and is almost barely saved by Taiga when no one else was paying attention. This angers Taiga and causes her to cry out, "Ryuji is mine."
I love this line. It is filled with so much emotion, but it can be taken multiple ways. This is still early on in the series, so we're not full swing into all the romantic feelings yet. So, this could be taken as a platonic thing. However, this part takes place right before the villa, and Taiga was seriously trying to get Ryuji and Minori together during the villa trip.
Speaking of the villa, there is the moment during the fireworks which breaks my heart. In Volume 4 of the light novel, it reads, "And beneath that dazzling sky, Ryuji didn't notice as Taiga slowly lowered her raised arm. The fireworks are amazing. Hey, look. Hey, stupid dog." She dropped her hand to the side, leaving the t-shirt hem she normally would have pulled untouched. She finally realized it. She hadn't realized it at all until then. Right. So that's how it is.
Taiga and Ryuji have liked each other for a long time, and they've held those feelings in for a long time, and they continue to hold them in, all the way until Valentine's Day.
Taiga lets it slip to everybody that she believed that it was Kitamura that saved her. Kushieda gets angry and yells at Ryuji, calling him a liar. Things get very intense, but finally feelings are made real as Minori admits to liking Ryuji the whole time, leaving Ryuji dumbfounded. And of course, Taiga and Ryuji admit feelings for each other too.
And thus ends the love polygon of Toradora. But that does not end the series as a whole, because there is more that comes after.
Taiga's mother has come over to visit, and she wants to take Taiga back with her. But Taiga doesn't want to go. In fact, she doesn't even want to listen, which upsets Yasuko, Ryuji's mother.
We haven't talked about Ryuji's mom a lot because she doesn't come up all that often. She's sort of comic relief, but she is there to give Ryuji advice whenever he needs it. Currently, Ryuji and his mother are having an argument over his future. He wants to start working directly after high school in order to help pay for the bills, but Yasuko wants him to go to college and better his life. He gets good grades, and she wants him to have a better life than what she can provide for him. She wants him to leave her behind to better his own life. But Ryuji is prepared to tie himself to his mother and sacrifice his own future, because if he did go to college, Yasuko would probably have to get a second job in order to pay for it. And that's exactly what Yasuko does behind Ryuji's back, which makes him very angry. Ryuji is a very caring person, and he is willing to stay by the side of the one he loves no matter what, even if it's not in his best interest. So, when Taiga's mother shows up trying to take Taiga away, the two hatch a plan of running away together and eloping after Taiga turns 18. This decision shows that these two really care about each other. However, it is a very risky and immature decision. Not only does Ryuji not want to go to college, but he's actively deciding to not finish high school. Decisions like this are why the student council president didn't tell Kitamura that she was moving away to America. People do risky things to stay by the sides of the one they love. As the saying goes, you only know you love them if you let them go.
Ryuji is ready to execute his plan with Taiga, but discovers that Yasuko has beat him to the punch and left with Inko-chan. All she left was a note directing him to his grandparents' place. So Taiga and him go to visit, and are immediately welcomed in, even though Ryuji has never met them. Family bonds run deep.
We're gonna tangent away from my main point for a little bit, because this part is really important to me, and might be my favorite romantic moment in anything ever.
While Ryuji and Taiga spend the night at his grandparents', the two talk about their plans of marriage, and Taiga throws a sheet over her head, calling it a veil. Taiga reminds Ryuji of the words he said to her long ago, and the two share a kiss. And then Taiga asks for one more, and then another, and another, as the camera pans away to give these two a private moment.
This moment is amazing and very fulfilling. We've seen these two together for the entire series, but we have never seen them share a moment as honest as this before. Because of Taiga's tsundere traits, she's not very honest with her feelings about Ryuji. But as the series goes on, those traits slowly go away, and all we're left with is how Taiga truly feels. This scene feels like the payoff for the whole series.
Ryuji manages to get Yasuko to come to her parents' place by lying that he got injured. And while there, Yasuko is able to reconcile with her parents about running away to have Ryuji. And now the relationship is reclaimed. So now we and Taiga see that it is never too late to make things right with your parents. So Taiga decides to leave with her mother without telling Ryuji. Back at school, Taiga is nowhere to be seen, and Minori smacks the shit out of Ryuji over it. But everyone in the class got a text from Taiga, a very grainy photo of a single star, which is a miracle that they were even able to decipher what that was. But this single pixel star is a metaphor for her going away, because even though the stars are millions of light years away, they are still always there. And so after graduation, Ryuji goes into the classroom, and after opening a filing cabinet, he sees Taiga inside, and he finally tells her what he should have told her at his grandparents' house.
I know I said that the scene where Taiga and Ryuji kiss feels like the payoff, but this is the actual payoff. This is a perfect ending that tells us the message of the series. The one you love will always come back to find you, no matter what. This is the moment that cements Toradora as one of the greats. The story of Toradora is great, and I think the anime does a great job of adapting it. It is a little old, but other than the visual style, it doesn't show its age that much. I do have a bit to say about the light novels and the manga, but before we do that, we still have to answer the question, how are the OPs? OP1. When I started this anime, I was expecting an opening like one of the Origairu OPs, or the Angel Beats OP. I wasn't expecting EDM, which is fitting because of the themes of the show, but Pure Pre-Parade is in the running for my favorite opening of all time. It has so much energy and makes me want to dance like nothing else. OP2. This one got set up. It's good, but it's no Pure Pre-Parade, so I skipped it out of spite. How are the EDs? ED1. It's okay. ED2. It's fine. Bonus song. The song that Ami and Taiga sing at Christmas was really cute and made me smile. I had it stuck in my head all day after watching that episode. When it comes to the light novels, the pacing is slower than both the manga and the anime, which isn't a bad thing. It is nice that it takes its time. But one thing I do find strange about the light novels is the overabundant use of slapstick comedy. It translates really well to the anime, but it's weird in book form. There's an entire part where Taiga wrestles with a dog, and there's no illustration to go along with it, so I just have to imagine it. And there's a lot of other physical comedy in the light novels as well. But I do appreciate these slapstick moments because they're nice to watch in the anime. I do recommend reading the light novels if you haven't read them before. The art's pretty good and they are pretty well written.
Moving on to the manga, which is honestly a whole other animal. The story is obviously kept intact, but they do a lot of funny things with the visuals. They play around with facial expressions of the characters a lot and deviate from the anime in ways that makes it feel new and refreshing. Plus, there are a few JoJo references sprinkled in. Taiga has also never looked cuter than she does in the manga either. You can tell that this manga was made with love for the original series, and I think the fresh take is enough to justify taking a look at the manga as a companion for the anime.
Toradora is special to a lot of people. In fact, on the subreddit, it's a very common understanding that you are to do a rewatch every year. And I think that's a fantastic idea. If there is any series that solicits a rewatch, it's this one. The beginning is lighthearted and fun, so it eases you in, and Ami's character gets better the more you watch because you understand her better. And the ending is really fulfilling. I watched this series last November, and I am planning on watching it every November for years to come. But there are plenty of anime that I have to watch for the first time, and I will definitely be talking about them here. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss them. And if you enjoyed this video, a couple weeks ago I did a video on Origairu, so definitely check that one out too. Leave a like, comment, and with that, sayonara.